In Vain, Ænigma. Stylized just like Tool's Ænigma. Coverkillernation, this is an album that here in 2013 where In Vain has poised to show everybody that their last album, Mantra, which was released a few years ago, was no fluke. See, whenever Mantra was released, there was a lot of attention that was really starting to buzz surrounding it, considering this is a talented group of gentlemen that are able to mold all of the layers of traditional style death metal along with a lot of progression. So that progressive death metal style or sound, that sounds really familiar. That sounds almost like it would be Opethian or like Pharmakon or a lot of other bands that have kind of sampled or dived into this a little bit. You know, Insomnium, Omnium Gatherum, just to name a few. Even if it's not completely what they're going for, it is something that they have, in fact, dove into the shallow end with, at the very least. In Vain is going a little bit more for the deep end in this variety, where their compositions and everything like that definitely reflect more of a couple of different acts that really fit very well and very nicely into the realms of either progressive death metal, what some people consider to be avant-garde music, even though it really isn't. It's just one of those things where a lot of people associate it with them, or at least did, especially in the early 2000s, because it was still a very, small niche of bands, so it was something that was very different and something that wasn't exactly very well known of at that time frame. And the names that I'm thinking of are Borknagar. The names that I'm also thinking are Opeth. The name that I'm definitely thinking about, though, is Soulfald. And it's extremely, extremely important, and it makes perfect sense as to why Soulfald comes to mind. Mainly because Soulfald members join In Vain on this album, providing some guest vocals on many of the tracks, and you're going to hear it mainly and principally on the cleans. These cleans will immediately remind you of Soulfald, considering it is them. However, at the same time, it'll harken you back to the reason why perhaps this was Soulfald was one of those bands that was the best band that nobody heard of, perhaps, in your world. They're tremendous, and they always come at a very fitting time. Now, what has forged this, I guess, alliance between In Vain and Soulfald is very simple. In Vain members have actually helped Soulfald out whenever they've gone on tour. So, it's a match made in heaven. Now, throughout this journey, which lasted around 56 minutes, you are taken really on, well, one hell of a ride. This is an album where the twists and turns are not necessarily all of that great as far as them being, out of left field, going in one direction and all of a sudden taking a hard left turn. Instead, everything seems to just flow and captivate you while also making musical sense. These are songs that really envelop the idea of progressive death metal being something that could be very well received or very well beloved by various metal fans, almost like an everyman's version of progressive death metal. And a lot of people say that Opeth really kind of opened those doors a lot with albums such as Blackwater Park or Still Life. However, I think that for this new generation that maybe knows only of a couple of the classics, or for people that really are looking to get into a newer band, someone to really latch onto at kind of the first part of their career as opposed to one that's already pretty well established, well, Ænigma is actually a perfect album for them. There's nothing really enigmatic about this album, so the name itself is actually a bit of a misnomer. But the problem with saying that is that there is something about this album that you can't quite put your finger on. Why do you still listen? Why is it so captivating? And why is it that this is an album that you'll definitely be returning to time and time again? I may have a couple of simple solutions for this, however you're going to have to bear with me. The very first reason is the songwriting. The songwriting on this album is all tremendously dynamic. They're able to blend all of the different elements of their style, the progressive style, the more straightforward deathy style, the melodic side, all together very nicely. So whenever these songs were crafted, they were crafted with a lot of care, and they were also crafted with a lot of sense. That being said, on a track such as track number 2, where you see kind of the going back and forth between the harsher and the more clean vocals, man, does that really create a tremendous atmosphere. The cleans on this are what really build everything. It seems as though the depths built up to the cleans, but whenever you hit those cleans, you're almost right there at that musical orgasm that I always like to talk about, the eargasm, and then finally, about 4 minutes into the track, whenever you hear everybody culminate together, where you hear multiple vocal tracks being interwoven throughout fantastic, fantastic melody, there it goes. The eargasm has already been achieved, and you're only 2 tracks in. Then you get to the instrumental that is directly thereafter it. And all of a sudden, it becomes something completely different. It's not an eargasm. Instead, it kind of tears at your emotions a little bit. That soft acoustic guitar that's able to just take you away. And then you start to realize that there's a bit of folk influence in there. Maybe even a bit of Viking metal. It's strange. This is almost like In Vain has metamorphosized themselves into a band that has been willing to explore various other subgenres of the progressive and the death metal departments, and they've been able to do so very nicely. The transition has been seamless. That's another reason why this album is captivating, because they're able to make momentary pauses into other despots of the progressive death metal subgenre, exploring sub-subgenres, either that or just going off into their own, perhaps, little concept, and they do so with expert craftsmanship. They're able to tailor all of the different things from the bands that we love and already know and combine them together to forge actually a rather unique identity. Some may feel that this album is a bit too straightforward. Some may actually argue that for the one thing that coverkillernation demands, which is variety, this album may lack a little bit. And that's where I disagree. I actually find that this album boasts variety in the fact that it's captivating, which means that it is doing something correctly. It's actually captivating you enough with what they do. It's throwing in enough little secrets, throwing in enough little diversions, either that or enough little surprises that truly keep you enthralled. The last track is a beautiful example, throwing in a saxophone solo, a soft piano interlude, and it really just feels like it's directly out of an Opeth playbook. This album has all of the tools in order to be a lasting influence here in 2013. This is an album that is memorable in the fact that it's truly enigmatic in all of the ways that you wouldn't think it would be. So yeah, in a way, I just hypocrisized myself. Earlier in this review, I said that this album was not really all that much of an enigma. Well, I'm wrong. This album is truly an enigma. It's perplexing how something that can be conceived as so simple and conceived as perhaps even a bit cookie cutter actually is not at all. It captivates, it resonates, it enthralls, and it definitely appeases. There is a wide appeal, the replay value is high, and really, it just makes you excited to really see where In Vain go from here. I have to give this one a solid 8.75 out of 10. While I do feel that a touch more variety would actually cause this album to perhaps be catapulted close to a 10, well, the addition of Soulfald and the clean vocals that were provided was extremely memorable. And the music itself is also memorable, which is because of the tight and very, very meticulous songwriting. I really enjoyed this. I highly recommend it. I know it's about a month since it's been released, but this is one that had to be talked about. What do you guys think? Tell me in the comments. And what should I review in the future?